An old house can feel more valuable because it has character. High ceilings, solid walls, mature trees, rooms that feel like they already have a story. And for a serious buyer, that can be powerful, but the real risk is not that the house is old. Old does not mean bad. Historic does not mean unsafe. The real question is different. What has this house carried? What could the buyer become responsible for after purchase? Old systems, past repairs, moisture history, materials that may need special handling, maintenance decisions that were made long before this sale. A house can show you its character immediately, but it may take a serious investigation to understand what the buyer is actually inheriting. The renovation illusion. This is where many buyers become confident too early. The house looks renovated. The kitchen is new. The floors are beautiful. The bathrooms feel modern. And that creates a powerful assumption. If it looks updated, the major problems must have been solved. But renovation and renewal are not always the same thing. A renovation can change how a house looks. It does not always prove what has been renewed behind the finish. Fresh paint cannot tell you the age of the wiring. New cabinets cannot tell you the condition of the plumbing. A renovated room may hide systems that are decades older than the surfaces around them. For the buyer, this matters because visible upgrades can increase the purchase price, while important ownership questions remain unanswered. The next question is simple: what was actually renewed and what was only covered? The hidden systems debt. Once you move beyond the paint, flooring, and fixtures, you reach a different layer of the house. The systems that make the property function every day. Electrical systems, plumbing, heating and cooling equipment, drainage, ventilation. Many older houses continue to operate perfectly well, with systems installed years or even decades ago. The problem is not that these systems are old. The problem is understanding where they are in their life cycle. A system can still be working today while moving closer to a major repair or replacement decision. For the buyer, this can create a hidden ownership burden, not because something is broken, but because the cost, disruption, and complexity of replacement may arrive sooner than expected. This is where a serious buyer starts asking a different question. Not simply, does it work? But, how much longer can I reasonably expect it to perform, and what happens when it doesn't? The materials and safety question. An older house is not only a collection of rooms, it is also a collection of decisions made over many decades. And some of those decisions were made using materials that were common at the time, but are evaluated differently today. This does not automatically mean the house is unsafe. It means the buyer should understand what may still be present before planning renovations or major upgrades. In some properties, certain materials may require specialist assessment, controlled removal, additional documentation, or specific renovation procedures. For the buyer, the ownership consequence is often not immediate danger. It is additional complexity, additional time, additional cost, and fewer surprises if those questions are answered before purchase rather than after. This is where the investigation begins to move beyond what the house looks like and into what the house is actually made of. The moisture and biological burden. If there is one thing that can quietly follow a property through multiple decades, it is moisture. Not necessarily a major flood. Not necessarily a dramatic leak. Sometimes it is a series of small events that accumulate over time. A roof repair that was delayed. A drainage issue that was never fully corrected. Condensation that appeared season after season. An old leak that was repaired, but never fully investigated. The challenge for a buyer is that moisture history is often difficult to see during a viewing. Fresh paint can hide previous staining. Dry weather can hide seasonal problems, and a well-presented room can reveal very little about what happened years earlier. For the buyer, the ownership consequence is uncertainty. Not just about repairs, but about what hidden deterioration, recurring maintenance, or future costs may still be connected to that history. And this is where the next layer becomes important. Because even when a house performs adequately, ownership experience may tell a different story. The comfort and energy gap. By this point, the question is no longer whether the house is attractive, The question is how it performs when you actually live in it. Many older houses offer character that newer properties struggle to replicate. But character does not automatically translate into comfort. A house can feel warm and inviting during a viewing, while being expensive to heat in winter or difficult to keep cool in summer. Older windows, insulation gaps, ventilation limitations, and decades of modifications can all influence the ownership experience. For the buyer, this is not simply an energy question. It is a lifestyle question. Monthly operating costs, daily comfort, noise, temperature consistency, air quality. The ownership consequence is that a house can be enjoyable to visit, yet demanding to occupy every day. And eventually, those ownership realities begin to influence something even more important: how future buyers evaluate the property. The insurance and resale problem. A buyer is not only purchasing a house as it exists today, they may also be purchasing the questions that future buyers will ask later. This is where hidden debt becomes more than an ownership issue. It becomes a confidence issue. Imagine two similar houses. One has clear documentation, understood systems, a known maintenance history, and evidence of major work. For future buyers, lenders, contractors, or insurers, those unanswered questions matter. Not because the property is necessarily defective, but because uncertainty has value, and certainty has value too. For the buyer, the ownership consequence is simple. The less you understand about what the property is carrying from the past, the harder it may become to explain that property with confidence in the future. This is why serious due diligence is not only about protecting today's purchase, it is also about protecting tomorrow's options. The due diligence advantage. At this point, some viewers may think the lesson is to avoid older houses. It isn't. The lesson is to understand them. Because due diligence is not designed to eliminate every risk. It is designed to replace assumptions with evidence. A serious buyer does not need a perfect property. They need a property they understand. They need to know what has been maintained, what has been renewed, what remains uncertain, and what future costs may still be waiting beyond the purchase. This changes the conversation completely. The question is no longer, should I buy this old house? The question becomes, do I understand what I am inheriting, and am I comfortable with it? That clarity creates negotiating power, budget realism, better planning, and a more intelligent ownership decision. Because the goal is not to avoid character. The goal is to understand the burden that may come with it. The real lesson. The most important lesson from this investigation is not that old houses are risky, and it is not that newer houses are better. The lesson is that appearance and ownership condition are not the same thing. A house can be charming, beautiful, well located, full of history, and still carry questions that deserve answers before capital is committed. The real risk is not age. It is what was never renewed, what was never documented, what was never fully understood. Serious buyers do not reject older houses automatically. They simply ask a better question. Not, do I love this house? But, what is this house carrying from the past? And do I understand what I am inheriting? Because character has value, history has value, architecture has value, but ownership clarity has value too. And that is where property risk intelligence begins.